Good morning.
Good morning, Reb.
Okay, let's see. We are on Daf Ches Amud Beis 8b. And what is that?
B2, right?
Well, that's a good question. That I have to pull up the art scroll for. But
AB2.
yes, B2. 8b2, we're up to the Tanu Rabbanon. The rabbis learned in a brisa, Tanu Rabbanon, and that is 8b2. And in the actual Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon about 10 lines up from the bottom, if you're using an actual Gemara. So let's just go over what we learned yesterday. The Gemara that we learned yesterday, it spoke about when you are putting in a request by making a day of fast for some type of a plague or a drought. We only pray for one thing. And the Gemara had a question there because they had plague and a drought. Which one they should daven for? And the conclusion was, Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani said, you should daven for the drought, because when Hashem gives food, it will be for life. Hashem doesn't give food for nothing. He's going to give food for life. So that means that we'll also get healed, saved from the plague. And the Gemara brought proofs. How do you know you're supposed to daven only for one thing? Brought the different verses. In Eretz Yisrael, it brought another pasuk in Daniel. The initial pasuk was from Ezra, basically that they fasted and begged Hashem for this, meaning that there were more things, but they davened specifically for one thing. And in Eretz Yisrael, they brought a pasuk from Daniel that they specifically davened for this one thing, that they needed to get to know what the dream of Nebuchadnezzar was and to interpret it, and that's what they davened for. Even though there were other things that they should have davened for, they didn't, because you only ask for one thing in such a time of a gzeira, of a decree. And then we had this interesting story where the Goyim trusted very much that if the Jews fast, it's going to work. And so they made a decree that the Jews aren't allowed to fast. And another text of this story is that they initially made decrees that the Jewish people can't keep their Torah. It was called the Gezeras Shmad, where they can't keep the Torah. And on top of that, they made another decree that the Jews are not allowed to make a fast day.
Rabbi,
they knew that their decree would be nullified. Yes, David.
I'm just noticing that the word for greenery is Gimel Resh Nun Vav. It's the same shorish in English and in Aramaic.
I'm not exactly sure if it means greenery.
That's the way he's translating it in the Ars in Rabbi Steinsaltz. Yeah, he says
really. He says that. Yeah, etymologically, it comes from.
I'm saying
green.
No, I'm saying that, but he's translating it as greenery.
Or a granary, not a greenery. Oh,
right, a granary, right?
A granary. Oh, okay, fine.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, granary. Yeah, I guess you're right. Then. Okay, I thought you said greenery. I didn't like that.
No, granary. Because they say that all languages are rooted in Hebrew and Aramaic, and
right.
or not Aramaic but Hebrew. So here you see a connection between the English and
yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. That fits. Okay, so getting back to what we were talking about, so they made a gzeira against the Jewish people keeping Torah and mitzvahs. It's called the Gezeras Shmad. And on top of that, they made another gzera, another decree that the Jews aren't allowed to make a fast day, because if they make a fast day, obviously the Goyim were nervous it's going to end up somehow, it'll nullify their initial decree. So they made this decree. In the meantime, Reb Zera was able to oversmart them, because he said it's fine. We don't have to actually fast. We could just plan on fasting. We'll make a we'll accept on ourselves a fast day when it becomes permitted to fast, and the merit of that will already help us win and get the decree annulled. And so so that's what they did, and he brought a source for it. They asked him, where do you have a source? He brought a source, and also in Daniel, that Hashem Hashem had already was listening to them from their promise, even before they actually fulfilled their fast, already from the first day that they thought about making the fast. The day that they accepted on themselves to make the fast, that already from then Hashem listened to their prayer. So you see, the acceptance of a fast is already has certain power to possibly to annul the decree and so on. Then the Gemara mentioned some negative things about rain. That rain does mess things up. If it rains on a Friday, it's a siman klala. And then we said that the day of rain is kasha, is painful, almost like a day of din, or the day of rain is bad if it falls on the day of din, the day of a judgment. Two ways of reading the Gemara, which we mentioned yesterday. That the difference of one letter, the letter chaf, the letter beis, depending on how you read it, it either means the day of rain is as harsh and painful as the day Monday and Thursday when they go to court, or it's if it falls on Monday and Thursday, the rain falls on a Monday and Thursday, a day of rain falls, then it's really bad, because it messes everything up. The whole system is ruined, because the people are not, it's not safe, and it's disgusting. It's all full of mud and danger and so on. Did you want to say something, Mordechai? Yes, not. Okay.
What?
Did you want to say something? I thought you had your hand up.
Yeah. Well, I think it says. I mean, I thought you said something about rain on Fridays, but that would be like Friday during the day, right?
Yeah. No, not Friday
because
night.
because I think it because I think it says on especially BE time. BE time is, I think it
Friday
says like
night.
Friday night.
Yeah. Good point. Mordechai is qualifying what the Gemara said here, that it says it rains on a Erev Shabbos, which I translated as Friday, but it means specifically Friday during the day before the night, because at night is actually considered a bracha to rain, because people are generally home eating their Shabbos dinner. So therefore, that's actually a perfect time to be a blessing. So if it rains during the day, then it's considered a siman klala, a curse. And Maimer said, to the extent that it's so inconvenient that when it rains, that if not for the fact that we need it, I would actually nullify the rain by asking Hashem to get rid of it. And but of course we need it, so he's not going to do that. But he would have considered nullifying getting rid of rain. That's what he would consider, making fast days and begging Hashem to get rid of it, because it's so inconvenient. So then the Gemara continues and says that yeah, it actually said one more thing there, that even if it's a drought going on, and it rains on a Friday, it's considered a siman klala. That was really the point that the Gemara said. Even if it was a drought, like the 3-year drought of during the time of Eliyahu, even if it was such a drought, even then, if it rained on a Friday, that would be a siman klala. Okay, and then the Gemara jumps back to positive things. That the sun on Shabbos is tzedakah for the poor, and we mentioned because the poor people they eat differently on Shabbos than they do during the week, and therefore they need some healing, and so the sun is the healing for them. So it's nice when it's sunny on Shabbos, and additionally, if it's during cold season, and the sun comes out, it's pleasant for them. And it mentions it's pleasant for the people who fear my name, who fear Hashem. And those are the people that, what that refers to is people who keep Shabbos. And then the Gemara said that great is the day of rain, that even the coin in the pocket, the coin in the wallet is blessed. And it brings the pasuk in Devarim. It says he's going to give the rain in its time and bless all the work of your hand. So it connects the two, meaning that when it rains, everything gets blessed. Now there is a practical understanding of that, which is that if it rains and the produce is in abundance, so what does that mean? That means the prices of produce will come down because it rains and there's a lot of produce. And that means that your money will go further. That means that the value of your money is more because you can use your money to buy other things. So that would be a very simple understanding of this, that even the money in your pocket is blessed. You'll end up with extra money. But on a simple way of reading the Gemara, it means that when you get a blessing from heaven, that the day of rain comes. So it's not just a blessing for rain; it's a blessing for everything. And that does fit a little better with the pasuk that it brings, because it brings a pasuk of Es kol maise yodechi, blesses all the work of your hand. That means like when there's a blessing coming down for rain, it's actually going to bless everything that you put your hands on. And then the Gemara said that another statement, a lot of these statements are from Rabbi Yitzchok. That's Rabbi Yitzchok said. The first one about the if it rains on Erev Shabbos, then he said about the sun on Shabbos. Then he said about great is the day of rain, that everything gets blessed. Now he has another one. He says that a blessing only is found on something that's hidden from the eye. And it brings a pasuk that Hashem will send his blessing ba'asamecha, which normally means in your silo, but here we're translating it to mean samoi min ha'ayin, samoi, which means something that's hidden from the eye. So Hashem will send his blessing on such things. And then the Gemara said that a similar line that they learned in the Beis Medrash of Yishmael, a bracha is only found something that the eye doesn't have power over. That's where you could have a blessing. It says Yitzhak Hashem will send his blessing in your asamecha, which we're translating as in your hidden storage place. It's not revealed. It's something hidden, then Hashem will send his blessing. Okay, now we're up to the new Gemara. So again, we're on page 8b, and the new Gemara is Tanu Rabbanan. It's by the two dots, about 10, 11 lines up from the bottom of the page. And the Gemara says, Tana Rabbana. The rabbis learned in a brisa. Hanichnas lamod, person who enters to measure, es garnai, his granary. Omer, he says, he ratzain, may it be the will milafanecha before you, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our God, shetishlach bracha, you should send a blessing, the maise yodenu, in the work of our hands. Of course, you daven that there should be a blessing, that Hashem should send his blessing in this. You're about to measure, make this, ask Hashem for a blessing. You should send a blessing. Okay. Now, the Gemara continues, says, Hiska Lamud, when the person starts measuring, Omer, he says, Baruch, Hashaleach, Bracha, B'kri Hazeh, blessed is Hashem, who sends blessing in this Kri, this measurement of this pile of grain. So, the person is, and the commentaries mention that here, seemingly you would say the Hashem's name. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. He sends bracha in this kri, in this pile of grain. Madad v'achakach birech. What happens if he measured and afterwards he says this bracha of Hashalech bracha b'kri hazeh? In that case, Harezu tefillah shav. This is a bracha in vain. It's a prayer in vain. Because a bracha is not found. It's not found in something that's weighed. It's not found in something that's measured. It's not found in something that's counted. Only in something that is hidden from the eyes. So this is a continuation of the previous Gemara, and the way we explain the previous Gemara is that Hashem doesn't like to make outright miracles. He likes to make small miracles, hidden miracles, I should say. So if you counted your grain and you counted that you have 100 boxes of it, so it's hard for Hashem. It's hard for Hashem. It's Hashem doesn't like to go and make a miracle then and say, you have 100 boxes. I'm going to now make, you're going to have 105 boxes. Hashem doesn't like to do that because it's too big of a miracle that maybe you don't deserve, or maybe the world doesn't deserve. Maybe Hashem doesn't want it to be so revealed, such a miracle. So instead, if you didn't count yet, you don't know how many boxes of grain you have, but Hashem then can make a miracle for you and add an extra 5 miraculous boxes of grain or bushels of grain. And by doing that, the bracha will take effect because you did not count it, because it's not, in other words, no one really sees the great miracle that happened in a revealed way. So therefore, the blessing can take effect. Hashem's blessing can take effect. So this is what our Gemara is dealing with, of Hashem's blessing in your items. How to do it in a way that you can Hashem's blessing will manifest itself. So basically, if you don't count it, then Hashem's blessing can express itself there. The question is, if Hashem's blessing happens when they don't count something, so really they should never count anything. Never count how much you have. Why does the Brisa say Hiska Lamud? When you start counting, then you say this. Why would anyone want to start counting? The bracha, you're going to ruin the bracha. The bracha only happens when you don't count. In fact, the whole beginning of this statement sounds surprising. Nichnas Lamud. He's entering to count. He says, Yehi ratzon milfanecha, may it be your will, Hashem, that you should send a blessing. He's entering to count. Didn't you just learn that you shouldn't count? Don't count how many bushels of grain you have because you're going to ruin the blessing. But the answer is he has to count. You have to count because you need to know what to take meiser. You need to separate the tithings. So because of that, the person is entering to count because he wants to take meiser, and he sees he's entering the count, and but in the meantime he didn't count yet. He can still say this bracha. He can still say this request of Yehi Ratzain and the bracha and so on because he still hasn't counted yet. But once he does count, then the bracha can no longer take effect. It was an interesting question. If you're going to do this, you're going to say this prayer. It means you're expecting a miracle, some miracle grain to be included, right? That's why you're saying this. You're asking Hashem for the Ratzain that Hashem should send a miracle grain. The only problem is, do you say, are you allowed to tithe miracle grain obligated in tithing? In other words, in a certain sense, maybe you don't want to include miracle grain. I'll give you an example. If you remember the story where this woman in the Tanakh, the Book of Kings, the woman needed, we didn't learn it yet in our afternoon class in Book of Kings, but
Obadiah's wife.
What is that?
Obadiah's wife.
Obadiah's wife, that's right. So Obadiah's wife, that she owed money. She had no way to pay it back. So Elisha told her, he said, do you have any, what do you have? She said, all I have is a osoch shaman, a small little, small pitcher of oil. He said, Kalem reikim al tamiti, right? Don't gather together a lot of empty vessels. And then he said, keep on pouring. You pour and just keep on pouring into all the empty vessels oil. It'll all be filled with olive oil. And ultimately, you will sell the oil and you will have money to pay back. Va'atu v'nayach tichyi b'noiser. You and your sons, your two sons, will live on the leftover, whatever is remaining after you pay all your debts back from the oil. You'll even have some to live on, a little extra. So that story, there's a medrash that says, she asked Elisha, do I need to take meiser? Do I need to take tithings from this oil? I'm getting all this, going to have all this oil soon. So Elisha told her, no. This is the medrash. Elisha told her, you don't need to. It's miraculous. You don't need to take tithings from it. So what do we see from there? Sounds like from there that you don't have to tithe stuff that comes via a miracle. However, if you think about that and try to connect it to our Gemara, what's going to happen in our Gemara if you get a blessing in your grain? So what's going to happen? You get an extra 5 bushels of grain. Hashem makes a miracle for you. You got an extra 5 bushels.
Yeah,
so
Rabbi,
you need to take meiser from them. So
yeah.
according to that story, it sounds like you don't need to. Now, if you don't need to take meiser from them, and now they're going to be mixed into your other grain, then you're going to mess up your whole thing because you never want there to be a mixture.
Rabbi.
You don't want there to be a mixture of good grain that was tithed and grain that wasn't tithed. What happens if you now tithe some of it that you're taking to tithe is exempt from tithing, and you're tithing for stuff that's not obligated? It's messing up your whole tithing situation. Yes, Ezra.
So in the case of the Shuna, in the case of Obadiah's wife, the Shunamit, this was an open miracle that she saw, and she could ask that question. When you're making a bracha, you have no idea whether Hashem gave you or didn't give you. And so therefore you can't assume that, okay, I've got 105, and so the 5 are the extras. You can't make that assumption. So you have to tithe whatever is given there, because there's a possibility that Hashem never gave you anything. You know,
That's right.
you make a bracha and you're asking Hashem, please, do me a favor and give me,
Extra.
and give me an extra. But there's no guarantee that Hashem is going to give you anything at all. And so therefore, because you haven't counted anything beforehand. Had you counted, then you could say, okay, these 5 are in fact what Hashem gave me, even if it was a hidden miracle, not hidden to me, but to everybody else. But in the case where nothing, where you make the bracha after the fact or before the fact, then there's no guarantee that Hashem gave you anything at all. So therefore, you have to tithe on the entire thing.
I agree.
The problem is, but how do you? But if we are even saying a bracha, I mean, the problem. The question goes further. How could you even say a bracha on this? Baruch and Rashi says they even say it with Hashem's name.
Bless you, Hashem.
But
Umazkir b'malchus v'azkara b'chol habrachos kulan. You say Hashem's name, that Hashem is going to give a bracha. I mean, it sounds like you're pretty convinced that there is going to be blessing.
Rabbi, in the Shema Koleni, when you say Yehi ratzon milefanecha Hashem Elokeinu ve'Elokei avotenu, and you're saying it with the name of Hashem, and you're asking him to be merapeh et kol, Am Yisrael. So what? You're saying with, you're hoping, but there is no guarantee that Hashem is going to answer the prayer.
So the thing is that when you say a prayer, you're asking Hashem, and you say Hashem's name, Hashem, please give me this. If you're saying a bracha, blessed are you, Hashem, for giving me a certain thing, that would seem to be a little problematic if you're not sure that Hashem gave it to you.
Who else would give it to you?
Bracha, who else? What? The bracha, blessed is Hashem, who sent the bracha in this creed. You don't know if there is. So the Sfas Emes wants to say that it's only if you see that it's been blessed, then you could actually say such a bracha. If you see that it looks more than you normally have, then you could say, then you could actually say a bracha. But if you don't see that it's been blessed, now it seems like it's around the same, then you wouldn't say such a bracha. And then that doesn't seem like the simple meaning of our Gemara, but that's the way the Sfas Emes wants to learn it. There are other ways of understanding this, and that is that you always say the bracha, no matter what.
Good.
Now, the Ramban wants to learn that this bracha is based on the fact that you're going to take Meiser, you're going to take your tithings, and we have a promise from Hashem that you will get blessed when you take Meiser. So therefore, the Ramban says, not a problem. Since you're going to be taking Truma and Meiser, then you definitely can say this bracha, because Hashem promises us that from taking Meiser, Truma and Meiser, you for sure it'll get blessed. And therefore, you're going to take Truma and Meiser, then you would be able to say this bracha. Again, you're saying a bracha with Hashem's name, thanking him for sending a bracha in this Kri, but you don't know for sure there is a bracha. So you don't know that it was blessed. You don't know that it really is more than what it initially made, that Hashem sent miraculous stuff in it. So to this question, so we said that the Sfas Emes holds you have to see that it definitely is more than what you initially brought. So he holds that would be a limitation on the bracha. And the Ramban seems to say that it's talking specifically about stuff that you're going to be tithing. So the blessed stuff is going to get in other words, the what you're counting here is what you're about to measure for tithing purposes. You know Hashem is going to be giving a bracha, and therefore you can say a bracha with Hashem's name because Hashem definitely is going to give you a bracha in this. And so therefore, therefore you could say the bracha. But my question comes after that. So now you have this stuff, that all this grain, and it was blessed. It either is getting blessed now, it's about to be blessed. The Sfas Emes holds it was blessed already. So if so, how are you going to be taking your miser from a mixture of stuff that is miraculous grain and stuff that is natural grain? You can't mix the two. Miraculous grain, seemingly from the story in Kings, the book of Malachim, that type of grain that's miraculous doesn't need to be tithed. In this grain that is the natural grain does need to be tithed. And you're going to now take from this grain. You don't know which is which. Hashem made it look similar. He's not showing you this is miraculous. I'm sending you miraculous stuff. So it's all mixed together. And you're going to be tithing from the good on the from the blessed on the non-blessed. So how could you do that? You'll be taking some from the non-blessed, the exempt. I'm sorry, the exempt on the obligatory. You can't take exempt a grain and be tithing for the obligatory grain. You can't use exempt grain and say, oh, this is for the obligatory. It has to be all from the same group. All has to be obligatory grain that needs to be tithed. That's how you separate your tithings, and that's how you do it exact, because you know exactly how much you have. Yes, Ben. What do you think? Yes.
I wanted to say, usually the farmer will know what to expect from a field. So now when you're going to give the tithing and you count the whole thing, and if you see more of it, you know how much more you got.
Wait, what did you say? The farmer usually what?
He knows how much to expect from the field.
Right.
Not the first time for him. The first time he might not know, but
right.
Usually he knows.
So that sounds like the Sfas Emes. That you can imagine it seems more than usual. He doesn't know exact numbers, but it seems more than usual. That would be like the Sfas Emes is saying. Then you can say a bracha. Okay, but how do you tithe when you have stuff that's more than the usual?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He usually knows how much more he got than he was expected. Today there is also, they tell you so much, the average is so much per acre. So you know what to expect, and then you know if you got more, then you got it's miraculous.
Okay, so but what I'm telling you is it becomes complicated now. So you have this big amount, there's some extra in there, and you don't know which is which. You don't know which is the miraculous grain, and you don't know which is the natural grain. You do know that you have extra. That's what your case is. So now tell me how to tithe such grain.
Well, I thought it was going by the number. So if you have so many baskets,
right? You would just take a tithe.
You take off the number of baskets that extra, and then you take tithing from the rest of it.
But you don't know if those that you took off that you're calling extra.
I don't think it can be. I don't think it can be a certain thing.
Well, you need to know in order to tithe. You can't just tithe like that then. In other words, if it's true that there's miraculous stuff that's mixed in here, then you can't just go and tithe like no problem. You would need to take other stuff that's not tithed and have need a whole plan of how to do it. And the Shulchan Aruch doesn't tell you have to do that. You could say this bracha and then you go and tithe. And that seems to be problematic because what you have here is what we would call a mixture of stuff that's obligated to be tithed and stuff that's exempt from being tithed. That's what it would seem. Now, I will say,
isn't it?
What is that?
Isn't it like Brera?
Yeah, it's an issue of Brera, which it seemingly would be a deraisa, which we would say ein brera, like you can't just choose which one is the miraculous and which isn't, and you would have to know exact, you know. So that would seemingly be a problem. Yes, Ruvain.
Rabbi, can't you separate after, because you know a farmer knows how much grain he put in the ground and how much he's going to grow. So can he separate without counting? Separate the tov where he picked it up, and then say the brachot for all the grades to become together. But already he didn't count, because the whole thing's about counting. But he knows how much he usually grows there. I mean, a farmer knows how much he's going to make, unless they had a bad rain and the rain flushed everything away.
That's
You
what
know,
I'm
so
saying.
You're saying let him separate before it even grows, because he knows exactly how much is going to come, or just do an estimate. So it didn't grow yet.
And then say the brachot, and then just go and deliver his, and then do his thing. So you won't have the extra that would be coming in.
You need to have it all there in order to take the tithings, and you need to. It's supposed to be done. I believe it's called min hamukah. And additionally, it has to be there. And still, I don't think it answers the problem, because you still don't know. You can't take some unless it grew already. And whatever grew, you don't know if this is what grew or if it's the extra that Hashem added in.
But you say he doesn't. But you said that he doesn't give it to you till after he said the brachot.
That what doesn't happen till after the brachot?
The miracle of the 5 extra.
Oh, that's a good point. So not not exactly the way you're saying it. I have to add one little thing. What Ruvain is mentioning, and if you switch it around to drop, according to the Ramban, that the blessing comes because you're taking a tithe from it. So when does the actual blessing arrive? When does the new grain come? It comes later, after you do the tithing. So the tithe, at the time of the tithing, then the bracha hasn't gotten there yet. So then you still have only natural grain. The bracha will come. You're saying a bracha earlier, true. You're thanking Hashem, saying a bracha, and then you do the tithing. And by doing the tithing, now you counted it, and you calculated how much you need to tithe, and the bracha is going to happen. The bracha would happen afterwards because you're tithing it. But I don't know if you could say it that way. So according to that, what would happen is you're separating Meiser. You count how much it is. First you say the bracha. You thank Hashem because you know for sure it's going to be blessed. There's going to be extra. Now you count it. You realize you have 100 bushels. So you take 10 for Meiser. You count 10, take 10 for Meiser. It hasn't been blessed yet. Now the blessing will take effect. The problem with saying that, not exactly the way the Ramban says it, that doesn't really work. Why doesn't that work?
You see a miracle. You see the miracle then. Then you see,
now it won't work.
Miracle.
You already counted it. So the blessing can't come now. It must have come before. So now, according to that, if the blessing already comes because it's stuff you're going to take the Meiser from, because you're going to take the Meiser, so the blessing will come now. So according to that, it's already blessed. So how can you take Meiser from? Some have said some extras. There's stuff that's exempt. So one of the commentaries wants to say an interesting thing. He says, the story of the oil, if you think about that story, the reason why she did not need to take a tithing from the new or miraculous oil was because the miraculous oil was added to oil that she had a small amount of that was already tithed. When something's already tithed and you get it miraculously to grow and expand, then you do not need to separate oil from it. You separate tithings from it. Because whatever you have started with that is what has expanded in a miraculous way. So she was exempt from taking tithing from the extra oil because she started with oil that was tithed already. Here we're dealing with the opposite case. The grain was never tithed yet, and now you're getting additional miraculous grain. So the miraculous grain is added to the original grain that was never tithed. So now the miraculous grain is obligated in being tithed because it just adds on. Miracles just add on to what you originally started with. And then the law of whatever the original is obligated in, the miraculous stuff that's the blessing of Hashem will also be considered part of it. And therefore, you're really actually obligated in taking a tithing from the miraculous, because you're starting, because the initial grain that you're starting with before the miracle is also obligated. You haven't taken yet Truma and Meiser from it. So you're soon going to take you're going to be obligated taking the tithings from the original. You're also going to be obligated in taking from the miraculous. So it's not an exemption that all miraculous stuff is exempt from taking Truma and Meiser. Depends what it's miraculously, what it's added to. That's what it really depends on. Anyway, that's one of the ways of explaining this seeming contradiction and figuring out how to fit that with this Gemara. But what actually is interesting is what comes out from the Ramban is that in a place where you're not obligated in getting in taking tithes for grain, like for example outside of Israel, so then the blessing doesn't apply. Then you can't say this blessing, because the blessing only applies where there's a mitzvah to take tithings from it. And that's when you say this bracha. And so in a place where you're not obligated in saying the bracha, therefore you would not say the bracha, at least without Hashem's name, according to the Ramban, because otherwise it would be a bracha of Atala, according to the Ramban, because it only applies in a place where you're obligated in saying, only in a place where you're obligated in tithing. And I believe it's brought in the Mishnah Berurah, such a concept that that only in Eretz Yisrael would you say this. Only in Eretz Yisrael would you say this blessing, because there's a mitzvah to take the tithing. And if you're not in Eretz Yisrael, you would not say Hashem's name. Let me just double check. Yeah, he brings that only if you're measuring in order to take Meiser do we find that Hashem adds a bracha to it. So if you're just going to measure your business, you're doing an accounting on your business, you wouldn't say this bracha with Hashem's name. But it's interesting. The Chayei Adam says it does apply to business. Like in other words, you could still put in a prayer that Hashem should send a blessing, but you don't say Hashem's name with the bracha, because you don't. There's no obligation to separate the tithings. So if you're doing it for your business, it's interesting. The Chayei Adam says a person who's a merchant who's going to measure his entire store, he should also say this prayer. Yehi ratzoin milfanecha, may it be your will. He could ask Hashem, so he could say a prayer. But interesting. But he says, and he changes the wording around, because he has to say the merchandise of this business instead of the kri, this pile of grain. But he would not be able to say Hashem's name in the because that only applies if you're measuring in order to take Meiser. Only there do you have a guarantee from Hashem. Only then do you have a guarantee from Hashem that you're going to get a blessing in this stuff.
So in the business, when you have the bottom line, you don't know how much was miraculous either.
Well, afterwards you measure it, but remember, if you ever count it, no more blessing in it.
I'm saying the bottom line, you counted your money.
The bottom line afterwards you counted, or you counted before.
No, the bottom line is already counted.
Right, but you never. Well, I guess you can compare it to previous years. I don't know. Yeah,
But the
you can see
same you
what
do
is.
for the farmer.
Yeah, I mean, you'll the blessing could come. You know, the blessing could be there, but it only comes before you do the counting. After you make your calculations, it's like stop. The blessing stops there. Okay, let's try to continue. So, so the Gemara said that after you finish count madad v'achakach bire, if you measured, you say the bracha afterwards, harizu tefillah shav, it's a blessing in vain, because the measuring, after the measuring, the bracha can't fisheina bracha matsuya, because a bracha doesn't find itself, doesn't exist. Loy b'davar hashakol, not something that's weighed. Loy b'davar hamodud, not something that's measured. Loy b'davar money, not something that's counted. Elo b'davar samim min ha'ayin, only something that is hidden from the eye. Okay. Now the Gemara says that we're going to mention a few other things, also interesting things about rain. And the Gemara gives a like a siman of what the next few paragraphs are about. Kibbutz gaisos, tzedakah, maisa or meiser, two different versions here. Parnes is the siman. So these are the next, just to remember which ones are what the order is. The Gemara gives you a little mnemonic to know what the order is. Okay. Amar Reb Yochanan. Reb Yochanan says, does everyone have the place? Amar Reb Yochanan, let me tell you where we are. In the art scroll 8B3. 8B3, it's what can I say? 8B3, it's about Amar Reb Yochanan. It's the
Rabbi,
8 lines up from the bottom on the first column. Okay. What did you say,
when
Ezra?
when you move away from the mic,
Oh, the mic, you don't hear me.
it's very difficult for us to understand what you're saying.
You know what? I don't even know
That's
where the mic
already-
is. My
Mic
computer
is right
has
where you are right now, because right now we can understand everything. But if you move to your left,
Yeah.
okay, it makes it very difficult to understand anything you're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So 8B3, and it's about 8 lines from the bottom of the art scroll.
You
8B.
move to the left
8B.
again.
Oh yeah, I moved again. Oh, let me see if I can move my computer. How about that? That might be better. Okay, now even if I move a little to the left, it won't bother. Won't ruin anything. Okay, 8B3, about 8 lines from the bottom over there on the first column, and in the regular Gemara we are about 5 lines from the bottom of the page. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Gadol Yom Kibbutz Yom Hageshamim. Great is the day of. No, so 1 second. Yeah, Gadol Yom Hageshamim Ki Yom Tzedakah. Great is the day of Geshamim, of the day of rain.
Yom Kibbutz Galuyos.
Yom Kibbutz Galuyos, like the day of gathering in the exiles. Shenemar, as it says, Shuva Hashem es Shivisenu. Hashem should return his captives. Ka'afikim ba'negev, like the streams in the dry land, in the desert. Negev is from the word naguv, dry. So Hashem should return his captives. Ka'afikim ba'negev, like we will be rejoicing like when there's streams of water, flash floods in the dry in the desert. So what do we see from there? That the day of rain is compared to the return of captives. It means it's a great thing. Ve'inafikim ella matar. And afike means is connected to a stream of rain. Shenemar, as it says, vayiro afike yom, the afike means the stream of water. It became revealed, the source, the bottom of the sea. It became revealed, which basically means that the water, that the stream, the depths opened up. What is that referring to? Shmuel Beis Chaf Beis Tez Zayin. What is that referring to? What is that pasuk about? Vayiro afike yam. Anyone remember where that was? David was thanking. That was the whole praise, right? It's similar to the chapter 18 of Tehillim, right? There's a chapter in the book of Shmuel which is very similar to the chapter in Tehillim, where David is praising Hashem for splitting the sea. So so he's praising Hashem. He's going through a lot of praises. That's that pasuk, right? So Vayiro Afi, it's also a haftarah. Vayiro Afike Yom, that it became revealed, the bottom of the sea, the splitting of the sea. Okay. So we see that it's referring to water, and then Kafika Manegev, the other pasuk, also refers to streams of water, meaning from the rain, and it basically means that the day of rain is similar to the day of the gathering in of the exiles. Okay, great is the day of rain. Great is the day of rain that even even the soldiers stop fighting. Shenemar, as it says, Tilamehad Rave, its furrows you will saturate. Naches Gidudeha, the Gedudim, the soldiers, are not going to go fight. They're going to take a little break. Menucha. They will take some rest. So, in other words, these are like some inyanim that are like great as the day of rain. Before we mentioned how like the day of rain, it messes things up. Here the Gemara is saying it's really an incredible thing. What does it mean that they take a break, that the soldiers take a break? Does that mean that they don't go to they aren't fighting when it rains, or they go run to get water to drink? They're thirsty. Anyone have an understanding as what the specific why that would be, that the soldiers don't fight when it rains? I would think soldiers, they have to go by heat or by cold. They have to fight. Maybe just because they stop and to get a drink. I wonder what the meaning of the soldiers stopping. Nache, what does the pasuk mean? Naches gedudeha. According to this drasha, that it's referring to soldiers. What would that mean?
Even in the news coming out from the Gaza, they said that it was bad weather, and the soldiers had to stop the fight because it was harder to fight in the bad weather.
These
Is
days
that what they
it's
said? That
different.
you
You can't see
fighting?
what you're
I don't
doing.
think so.
What?
You can't see what you're doing. And
Uh-huh.
so therefore it becomes dangerous, because you really don't know who you're going up against.
Uh-huh. So they can't really fight.
So, you hunker down. Sometimes your equipment also does not work very well in the rain.
These days,
Uh-huh.
the equipment is the problem.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the practical side of it. So the Gemara continues and says, V'amar Rabbi Yochanan eina gasham natzarim. The Gemara says, rain. Rabbi Yochanan says, another statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Here we have so far 3 statements. And this is a third. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan eina gasham natzarim. Rain doesn't, the rain doesn't get withheld. Ela b'shvil paiskei tzedakah berabim. It's because of people who make commitments, promise, charity in public. they ain't nice them, and they don't give it. And because they don't give it, so that causes a negative repercussion that Hashem also stops giving. Now, Rashi says it doesn't have to be specifically in public. Even if a person does it in private, it would also stop. It's just that the common thing is that a person is paisek tzedakah in public. Orcha de milsa nakat, Rashi says. It's the norm that people pledge, they make pledges in public, but really, in truth, the same thing would happen if a person does it in private. That person makes a promise for tzedakah and he doesn't give it. The Gemara says even that it's the Gemara uses the example in public, but it really applies anywhere. Shenemar, as it says, Nesiyim v'ruach v'geshem oyer. That Nesiyim v'ruach, what is the cause? That there's no clouds, wind, and rain. Or another way of reading it is Nesiyim v'ruach. There is clouds and there is cloud, mist, and wind, but v'geshem oyer, but there's no rain. What is the reason for that? Ish mishalel b'matas sheker. It's because a person is taking pride in a gift of falseness, a false gift, that he's promising something that he's not giving it.
So what's Nisiyim V'ruach? How is it translated?
So there's two ways of translating Nisiyim V'ruach. Either Nisiyim V'ruach is that the mist and the wind is coming, or clouds in the wind is coming, but the rain doesn't show up when it normally is supposed to come right afterwards. It doesn't, and the reason for that is that the person is committing and he's not he's committing and he's not following through with his commitment, his pledge. The Rashi brings a second interpretation that it really refers to all three. Nesiyim v'ruach v'geshem oyin. All three. There's no clouds, there's no wind, there's no rain. All three. There isn't any. But the reason for that is ish mishalo b'matas sheker. Person is taking pride. So Rashi gives a little explanation. He says, the person is tricking the poor. So heavens also tricks the earth. Like that would be a reason that Hashem would bring clouds and wind, and then stops right there. No rain. Because you go and trick the poor, not give them and don't give them and commit. You got them excited. Oh, I'm going to give you a nice donation, and then you stop. So that causes Hashem does the same thing, and he stops right there. Now, Rabbi Yochanan says, "My dechsiv." What does it mean in the pasuk? Aser taser. You should surely tithe. It uses a double language. We just turned the page to 9a. Aser b'shvil shatis asher. It says it twice, aser taser, because it means you should tithe in order to get rich, which we'll soon see means that a person is even allowed to test Hashem, that you're allowed to give money to charity in order to get rich. You're allowed to give to tithings, to tzedakah in order to get rich. And even though you're normally not allowed to test Hashem, but here you are allowed to test Hashem, which we'll see Yemet Hashem tomorrow. Zay gesund, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great
Thank you,
day.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good day,
Thank
everybody.
you.